If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.
Hey everyone, this is Melanie Johnson. We have another great guest on. We are going to be talking about conquering the fear of writing your book and getting it done. So many times we get trapped in that, like you start to write or you think it's not going to be good enough. Is anyone going to read my book? So let's go into that. We've got some great tips. Andrea Susan Glass is our guest today, and she is an award-winning ghostwriter and book coach. She works with first-time nonfiction authors. She's an instructor at the University of California, San Diego, and she's on the board for Professional Editors Network. So welcome, Andrea. Thanks for joining us today to give us really some insight on how to blow up confidence for our writers.
I'm glad to be here, Melanie. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Tell us a little bit how you got started in this industry.
Well, I had always loved writing. As a youngster, I wrote, but as I grew up, I was told you can't make a living as a writer. So I didn't focus on thinking I could ever do writing as a career. So I got into education. And along the way, I was always taking writing classes, though, in the local community college. And when I started writing opinion pieces, I got some paid gigs and I thought, wow, I can get paid for writing. This is cool. So I finally decided I was going to write a book. And I felt that it was really difficult to sell it. I couldn't get past that selling point. I published a small book in 1990 before self-publishing was big. And I thought, if I wrote a book for someone else, I could get paid up front and I wouldn't have to worry about selling it. So I put an ad in a local newspaper and I got my first ghostwriting job in 2000. And in 2001, I won the San Diego Book Award for the best how-to book. And when we talk about building confidence, that's a super confidence builder. Because if you've never written a book before that the public really saw and you won an award for it, your confidence goes like that. So I said, okay, I'm going to ghostwrite books for other people. And as I worked with them, I saw that some people just needed copy editing. So I added copy editing. And then I got an opportunity to teach copy editing and writing at the University of California Extension. So I've been teaching online way before COVID. And for about 15 years, I've been teaching for them. So I've married my love of teaching and my love of writing. And that's how I came to write the 2 books I published this year. I'm teaching writing throughout my books. So that's kind of the evolution of how I came to where I am today.
Wonderful. Well, tell us why do authors seem to lack confidence in writing their books? What is some of the biggest hurdles they have, and why do they lack this confidence?
Well, I work primarily with first-time authors, and when you're beginning anything for the first time, you generally don't have a lot of confidence, especially if you've never shown your writing to anyone. So many people are closet writers, or they write, and in the old days, we used to say, I put my manuscript in my desk drawer. Now it's lying on my hard drive and nobody's seen it. So if you don't know how anyone views your writing, you don't really have confidence in it. We're all very hard on ourselves. So even writers who've been published are hard on themselves sometimes. Oh, I could have done better. And I even took my first book down 5 times and made corrections to improve it. But the lack of confidence comes from not knowing if your writing is good enough, and certainly good enough to be published. And second, not being aware of the whole writing process. We don't have confidence in what we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't know, and this is something that I find these questions all the time. I'm always looking for what questions do I need to answer as a book coach. And the main one is I don't know the writing process. I don't know how to start a book. I don't know how to finish a book. I don't know what comes after. And, companies like yours, for example, are great. They've come on the scene and they help writers with that whole process. But initially, there is no confidence where there is no knowledge. Also, it's very difficult to have confidence in your subject Because if you look on Amazon, for example, and you see so many books, perhaps on your subject, you think, how could I be another person writing a book on this subject? Maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I'm not a qualified expert. People don't know me. So how can they think that I'm going to be knowledgeable enough to talk about this particular subject? And then the one other area in lacking confidence is marketing. Let's face it, authors are creators, they're not sellers. They're wonderful creative people. And I love the fact that authors can write books all the time with new ideas, and you always see something new, but they're very weak in marketing for the most part. So the lack of confidence, and so many people, like I said before, will put their manuscripts away because they're afraid of selling them. Even if it's a great book, if they put it out there and they don't know how to market it, their confidence is going to go down the hill because nobody's going to buy it. So there's so many areas that we lack in confidence, and that sometimes keeps a good author perhaps from moving forward to publication.
And we've even had people who are extreme experts in their field, well-known presidents of corporations, and they're nervous about saying what they're an expert at and putting it down on paper, that they even get that nervous. And then there is that thing, will anybody buy it once I put it out there? And there's a bunch of books on, say, leadership or something already. I always tell our authors, listen, I live in Houston, Texas, and there are Baptist churches everywhere here. Every corner you go on, it seems like there's another Baptist church or another church, and they're all preaching out of the same book, right? But all the preachers have a different voice that they're giving in a spin, and you're attracted to one message or the other because you connect with how they interpret it. So your story is going to be a little different, and your twist on it based on your experience is going to be different. But sometimes that still does not quiet that internal voice. You talk about internal and exterior barriers. Tell us what those are.
Well, I coined the word CODE, CODE, which stands for challenges, obstacles, distractions, and excuses. So I like to call it, you have internal codes and you have external codes. Let's talk about the external ones first. They're more apparent. An external code is something that stops you from moving forward. And there's so many of them. For example, our technical distractions, our phones, our email, going online. Big one, YouTube. People get lost in YouTube. If I was retired and I wasn't doing anything else and I wanted to learn and learn, I'd be on YouTube all day. So we have these external distractions. We have family, we have friends, we have pets, we have household chores, we have a lack of focus, we have other priorities. If we're working 9 to 5, we have a time limit. So we have what I call external codes, and these are the challenges, obstacles, distractions, and excuses that keep us from moving forward. Then we have the internal ones, which are a lot harder to discern. An internal code would be fear. It would be the lack of confidence we were talking about. How about guilt? Guilt that I'm spending time writing, which is a non-income producing time. I should be working instead of writing a book. So there's guilt. There's, that lack of confidence we talked about in all the different areas. There's lack of knowledge. So the internal codes are a little bit harder to notice, and the external ones are there, but we sometimes just allow them. Oh, I'm hungry, I'm going to go get a snack. And sometimes if you distract, let's say your 2-hour writing period, it's really hard to get back to it. So the term writer's block is really caused by an internal or an external obstacle or fear that's stopping us. And my philosophy, and the reason that I wrote my 2 books, is I want people to prep themselves in advance to analyze their codes, to visualize their codes, to take a look, step back and say, what are the habits that I've developed that are keeping me from writing my book? And these are pretty much habits, the habit of checking your email every 15 minutes or something. I know people who only check their email twice a day. Yay for them. I'm the bad one. I'm checking it every 15 minutes. But if I put aside writing time, and I call this 2-hour time focus, that's a skill set you have to learn, how to focus and keep out the distractions. So by prepping yourself in advance, and being honest about what you do to sabotage yourself, and we all do it in different ways, then you can deal with them up front. If I know that people are distractions, I'll put a sign on my door. It says, do not disturb. Or I'll make sure I turn off my phone or turn off the sound on my computer so that I don't hear the emails coming in. If you can assess your distractions and your codes up front and figure out how you're going to deal with them, then you're much less likely to stop. Unfortunately, I have to tell you, Melanie, I have had clients over the years who quit in the middle of their book, and it's really sad. Sometimes I haven't even been able to get in touch with them to find out, but it's either a strong distraction or it's an internal fear, or lack of confidence. And either they don't want to deal with it or they don't know how to deal with it.
I see that is a real common thing. You've got the vulnerability part of having to be vulnerable, and then you've got the discipline of staying in that zone and not having those obstacles and challenges. What are some of the most effective things? You gave us a few, like, making that 2-hour time limit, turning off notifications. What are some of the actions that you give your authors of telling them to do to help them get their book done?
To tell you that I strongly believe in accountability. I have gone on several diets, and the only ones that worked are when I had support and accountability, because sometimes we can be more accountable to another person than we are to ourselves. I will not miss an appointment with you. I was here 10:30 on the dot, but if I make an appointment with myself, I can find lots of ways to get out of it. So I had accountability while I was writing my first book this year with another author, and we checked in with each other by email on word count. How many words did you write today? How many words did you write? And when you know someone else is cheering for you and holding you accountable for what you say you're going to do. For example, you could send your accountability partner a list on Sunday night of what days you're going to write and what times that week. Now, this is what I do as a book coach. So you can either pay someone like me as a book coach or find another author or someone to hold you accountable, and they will check in with you every day and make sure you wrote when you said you were going to do it. The other way that you overcome your codes is, like I said before, is be clear on what they are. For example, when I set up a marketing plan, I teach marketing for copy editors at the University of California. And one of the things I put in my marketing plan is possible challenges and how I'm going to overcome the challenges. Mm-hmm. So I feed that right into any marketing or any plans that I have. And so let's say I'm planning on going to a networking event, and one of the possible challenges would be that I'm not feeling like I want to communicate with people. So the way I would overcome it would be to invite a friend. And I've done that several times. I say, hey, come with me, and we'll be there for each other. So again, determining upfront what your codes are and being honest about them, figuring out yourself or finding someone else you can brainstorm with as to how to overcome them, because sometimes we can't see ourselves. We can't see the challenges that we're facing as clearly as someone else might. And I'm very fortunate to have several people in my life who will be 100% honest with me and tell me what they see, if they see the ways that I might be sabotaging myself. So getting the accountability, setting a schedule. A writing schedule could be something like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 to 12, or I'm going to write 1,000 words a day. The other part of getting over the challenges is to set a timeline. Now, a lot of people try to sell courses that you can write a book in 30 days or 60 days. I think everyone should set their own timeline, because unless you have an event coming up where you have to have your book done, set something, let's just say realistically 6 months. If you set a timeline, you'll start pacing yourself and you'll start working towards that. And let's say your timeline says in 3 months, I'm going to have my first draft done and I'm going to send it to beta readers. And then in the next month, I'm going to get it copy edited. In the next month, I'm going to send it to my advanced readers and get my cover designed, my interior formatted. And so you create that timeline, and having that, because when we're working by ourselves as an author, we have only ourselves to hold accountable. So if we create our own dates and our own timelines, then we have something that we can follow and we have that structure. And truthfully, no author should ever be alone on this journey. We have other authors. We could have a book coach. We can have a copy editor. We have a book cover designer. We have author groups. I belong to 4 of the groups in San Diego, and I get a lot of support from those groups. So setting yourself up with other people is another great way to overcome your codes.
I love that. I was thinking about that as you were saying that, even to, announce it on social media that you're writing the book and you want your support of the people that your friends are on Facebook or Instagram or wherever to, keep you accountable during the process, and you'll keep them posted. So, you're like, oh, last time I posted, I only had so many words done. I got to post again. People are going to ask me, I better put it in there. And I love that you brought up about groups, because I think people forget about, there's all these different Facebook groups for writing groups, and that you can get to, that you can tell them that you're writing this book, and that can be your accountability. If you don't want to be out to the whole world, you can do it just within the group of there. And another tip is, like you said, the graphic designer, that you might be through the process, and if you're starting to get stuck, kind of switch over and start to work on your book cover. We do that with our authors while they're writing and editing. We're getting the book cover done, so there's excitement that they're seeing it come to life, and it's motivation, right, to get it done. I think that's what you were telling everyone. And the publishing calendar is another great tip, because then you've got that. And on the tech side, I'm big on tech, is that, you've got, your phone has all these different tools in it. You can set reminders for yourself on your calendar. You can put it in your calendar. It can ding that you're supposed to, oh, it's writing time. You're supposed to be writing, and your phone is dinging, reminding you. So there's all kinds of technology that you can bring in to use to remind you to have those times and do that stuff.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I was going to say something about the social media. When I was launching my first book in January this year, I did a 14-day countdown, and every day I posted, and then people were basically cheering me on, and they were there for my launch. And I had a very successful launch because I think I did it on Patreon, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And so I was gathering more followers. But the thing about that too is that a lot of people say that you should start 6 to 9 months in advance with marketing. And here's what I found with working with authors. They are terrified of marketing. And if I start to talk about it too early, they may lose the momentum. They may start thinking, oh, I got to market, and they may derail themselves from writing the book. So with some authors, I just can't bring it up. And if they finish the book and it's done and it's ready to go, and then we start the marketing, that's okay too, because you don't want to stop the flow if marketing is such a big challenge for some people. And then, of course, with companies like yours, which is fantastic, they can turn all that marketing over to someone else. But I don't necessarily agree with the people who say, have the author start looking at 6 to 9 months before they even finish their book, because sometimes it just derails them and they're not going to continue going if they have that fear. If that fear of marketing is just so strong. And that's been my experience with my authors.
You know what? I think it's the word marketing. Like, you changed it from marketing your book of you're going to share your book.
Sharing it, I know.
You're going to share the process with people. And it can just be a small group or the whole big group. And as you're sharing it, that is marketing. So it's that word is just by making that shift, that you're not marketing, you're just sharing the process with all the people that you love and care about that are in there. And innately it turns into marketing. We'll call it like that's the secret behind it, that you're sharing the book when you do that.
Well, they read about building a platform and the marketing, all that, and they get terrified of that. And I didn't start 6 to 9 months in advance. I probably started about 4 months in advance. But still, I guess as a book coach, I'm part therapist. So you have to feel out how you can work with an author and what will keep them on track. That is the most important challenge that I have found, is keeping them through the end to writing the book. I have a lady, Elise, I've been working with for over a year, and she keeps coming back and going away and coming back and going away. And her challenge is a little bit different. Than the nature of her book is bringing up a lot of emotion for her. So that's why I say sometimes a book coach is part therapist, because you never know what's going to come up when someone's writing a book. There are a lot of issues, emotional, again, internal and external issues that come up. So
how do you get somebody over vulnerability to want to be vulnerable, to tell their story. Like the author you're just talking about, she's got a lot of emotions tied to it. And she's telling her story that might not be easy for her to tell. And some people don't want to tell the whole story. What I've seen is people hold back and you're like, but where's the guts to it? Where's the meat to it? Make me laugh, make me cry, make me feel your pain, make me feel your joy. How do you get them to be vulnerable?
Well, I find that there's two issues that I focus on. One is the author has to be truly invested in why they want to write the book. Sometimes a book like we're talking about where there's a lot of emotion involved, maybe a book that they only want to write for their immediate friends and family. So that takes some of the edge off thinking that they're going to have to share it with everyone in the whole world, and they wouldn't be feeling as vulnerable if it's just a small circle of friends. So the why is, why am I writing this book? Is it just for me? Is it cathartic for me? Is it for me to share just locally with family and friends, or do I want to share it with the world? An author has to really connect strongly with why they're writing it. And if the choice of writing it is stronger than their unwillingness to be vulnerable, then that can overcome it. The second strongest point I find is what they want to do with the book for the reader. There's got to be a message. Perhaps a lot of the memoirs that I've worked on, someone has overcome some sort of tragic experience and they feel that other people can learn by their experiences. So the message for the reader is the second reason that someone might be willing to overcome the vulnerability, because they really want to get that message out there. They want to help people. They want to share the message. They may be building a platform. They may want to speak about it. One woman I worked with, her fiance died in Vietnam. And when she remarried, she married someone who had PTSD. He survived Vietnam, but he wasn't totally there for her. And so she has gone on since her book was published to work with groups that are involved with returning soldiers. And, she's got a mission to put out there. So connecting with the author's why and connecting with the reader's why are two ways that an author will overcome the vulnerability, because their message is really strong enough that they want to get it out there.
So true. I think the why is so important. That's what gets you up in the morning and gets you motivated to write your book. If you have that compelling why, that's going to move you forward and want to get the book out and finish writing the book. Very smart, Andrea, to make sure they have a strong why. And then we have found, I think you have found this about, to celebrate, like have something as your carrot at the end. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, one of the reasons that celebrating our successes is important is because it does build confidence. Every small success builds to the next level. So the very first time you have someone read something you've written and they like it and they give you positive feedback, and we're not just talking about family or friends who say, hey, that was really good. We're talking about sincere critique. You can say, oh, wow, I'm a good writer. It's okay. People like what I did. So let me celebrate that success, because we celebrate small successes and they build on the next success. And you can't just wait for the biggest success. You have to take it in small dosages. If you're lacking confidence from the start, sometimes I would suggest someone submit an article or write a blog or just get some feedback on their writing. And as they find these small successes, celebrate them in whatever way is a positive way. That means, going out to dinner with a friend, or joining a new writing group that they wanted to join, or buying a new book on Amazon marketing, or something that's going to propel them in the future. And then when they're finished, like the book I said I self-published in 1990, that ages me, but anyway, I had a book birthing party. Nowadays we have online blog tours and we have online celebrations, but I had a book birthing party. I had people dress up. I had non-alcoholic champagne and I sold books, and I just celebrated that I finished a book and I published it. And self-publishing in 1990 was very archaic. So I had to print 1,000 books to get a decent price. And then when the truck driver delivered it, he bought my first book. So I was a success. And you celebrate, like I said, the small successes. And I took my books everywhere I went. And, you find everybody has different ways to celebrate. It can be taking a 2-day vacation, getting together with other authors, starting a mastermind group of authors. having a party at your authors group, having a family celebration. It's just important to acknowledge our successes because, hey, we know that we're very hard on ourselves. All of us are hard on ourselves. And we're never going to succeed as an author by writing and selling our books if we're hard on ourselves. There's no one who can boost us up except ourselves. I mean, even as a book coach, I can't do that for people. Everybody has to love and acknowledge and appreciate themselves. And by celebrating our successes, that's how we appreciate ourselves.
Love that. So tell us, you have some amazing tips. I think you said like some great 3 tips, or I can't remember if it was more tips to wrap this up with.
Yeah, well, I wanted to point out the top tips that I feel as a book coach and as working with first-time nonfiction authors. One is setting the writing schedule and the timeline, because as an independent author, we're very unstructured. So by setting up a writing schedule and a timeline, we create that structure that we need. The second tip is getting the accountability for that structure. The next tip is what we talked about, assessing our codes. If we don't assess our codes up front and decide how we're going to handle them, then they're going to derail us. Absolutely, because I've worked with hundreds of authors and I've seen it happen. And then the bonus is to follow the 11 steps in my book and my workbook, because they're a sequential, finding out why you're writing the book and why you want the reader to buy the book and on. So I have 11 steps in my books and my workbook. And if you follow that, you can't go wrong. It's going to take you from the beginning of writing your book all the way through your book. And you'll have that book. So many, 81% of people say they want to write a book, but only 1 or 2% actually do it. And yet we do see thousands of books out there, but you have to be brave. It's not an easy process, but it's a very rewarding one.
Be brave. And I love, it might not be easy, but if you bring the right team on to help you, book coaches, editors, publishing companies, graphic designers, and you can get all that team together. It's like building a house. You need all the right contractors to make it all come together. And I think that's the same with a book to do that.
Definitely.
Yep.
Well, I wrote your fabulous first book, How to Write with Clarity, Confidence, and Connection. And it's a great book for starting out with writing your first nonfiction book. I followed it up with the workbook, my fabulous first book, the Workbook Companion. And it's a lot of fill in the blanks. And when you fill in the blanks, you're forcing yourself to answer the questions that are going to put you on the right path. And I'm telling you, when you plan in advance, you are so much less likely to stop anywhere but at the end. And it's going to be just a more positive and a smoother journey to get from idea to publication.
That sounds like a great Kickstarter to getting your book written. Even if you've written a book and you're looking to do your next book, it sounds like a great value to have that there. Thank you so much, Andrea. We really appreciate you participating and being part of this.
Yeah, I'd love to, share my website, andreasusan.com. And I have free coaching sessions for people who just want to chat about their next step.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.